and programs. Bottom line is the show to watch.
Well, join Asmi Uba as it brings to the table movers and shakers of society and policymakers whose decisions have direct impact on your lives.
Bottom line comes up every Thursday at 7 p.m. on SLBC TV, Channel 31 with Asmi Uba.
Bottom line on SLBC TV, a program you can't afford to miss on SLBC TV, Channel 31. Join me now.
The show that touches every aspect of society as we leave no stone unturned.
It's Bottom Line, only on SLBC TV. Do you know the TV show that brings to you the decision makers who determine and shape the country's policies and programs? Bottom line is the show to watch.
Well, join Asmi Uba as it brings to the table movers and shakers of society and policymakers whose decisions have direct impact on your lives.
Bottom line comes up every Thursday at 7 p.m. on SLBC TV, Channel 31 with Asmi Uba.
Bottom line on SLBC TV, a program you can't afford to miss on SLBC TV, Channel 31. Join me now.
The show that touches every aspect of society as we leave no stone unturned.
It's Bottom Line, only on SLBC TV. Do you know the TV show that brings to you the decision makers who determine and shape the country's policies and programs? Bottom line is the show to watch.
Well, join Asmi Uba as it brings to the table movers and shakers of society and policymakers whose decisions have direct impact on your lives.
Bottom line comes up every Thursday at 7 p.m. on SLBC TV, Channel 31 with Asmi Uba.
Bottom line on SLBC TV, a program you can't afford to miss on SLBC TV, Channel 31. Join me now.
The show that touches every aspect of society as we leave no stone unturned.
It's Bottom Line, only on SLBC TV. Do you know the TV show that brings to you the decision makers who determine and shape the country's policies and programs? Bottom line is the show to watch.
Well, join Asmi Uba as it brings to the table movers and shakers of society and policymakers whose decisions have direct impact on your lives.
Bottom line comes up every Thursday at 7 p.m. on SLBC TV, Channel 31 with Asmi Uba.
Bottom line on SLBC TV, a program you can't afford to miss on SLBC TV, Channel 31. Join me now.
The show that touches every aspect of society as we leave no stone unturned.
It's Bottom Line, only on SLBC TV. Do you know the TV show that brings to you the decision makers who determine and shape the country's policies and programs? Bottom line is the show to watch.
Well, join Asmi Uba as it brings to the table movers and shakers of society and policymakers whose decisions have direct impact on your lives.
Bottom line comes up every Thursday at 7 p.m. on SLBC TV, Channel 31 with Asmi Uba.
Bottom line on SLBC TV, a program you can't afford to miss on SLBC TV, Channel 31. Join me now.
The show that touches every aspect of society as we leave no stone unturned.
It's Bottom Line, only on SLBC TV. Do you know the TV show that brings to you the decision makers who determine and shape the country's policies and programs? Bottom line is the show to watch.
Well, join Asmi Uba as it brings to the table movers and shakers of society and policymakers whose decisions have direct impact on your lives.
Bottom line comes up every Thursday at 7 p.m. on SLBC TV, Channel 31 with Asmi Uba.
Bottom line on SLBC TV, program you can't afford to miss on SLBC TV channel 31. Join me now.
The show that touches every aspect of society as we leave no stone unturned.
It's Bottom Line, only on SLBC TV. Do you know the TV show that brings to you the decision makers who determine and shape the country's policies and programs? Bottom Line is the show to watch.
Well, join Asmi Uba as it brings to the table movers and shakers of society and policymakers whose decisions have direct impact on your lives.
Bottom Line comes up.
Bottom Line on SLBC TV. The program you can't afford to miss on SLBC TV channel 31. Join me now.
The show that touches every aspect of society as we leave no stone unturned.
It's Bottom Line, only on SLBC TV. Do you know the TV show that brings to you the decision makers who determine and shape the country's policies and programs? Bottom Line is the show to watch.
Well, join Asmi Uba as it brings to the table movers and shakers of society and policymakers whose decisions have direct impact on your lives.
Bottom Line comes up every Thursday at 7 p.m. on SLBC TV, channel 31 with Asmi Uba.
Bottom Line on SLBC TV. The program you can't afford to miss on SLBC TV channel 31. Join me now.
The show that touches every aspect of society as we leave no stone unturned.
It's Bottom Line, only on SLBC TV. Do you know the TV show that brings to you the decision makers who determine and shape the country's policies and programs? Bottom Line is the show to watch.
Well, join Asmi Uba as it brings to the table movers and shakers of society and policymakers whose decisions have direct impact on your lives.
Bottom Line comes up every Thursday at 7 p.m. on SLBC TV, channel 31 with Asmi Uba.
Bottom Line on SLBC TV. The program you can't afford to miss on SLBC TV channel 31. Join me now.
The show that touches every aspect of society as we leave no stone unturned.
It's Bottom Line, only on SLBC TV. Do you know the TV show that brings to you the decision makers who determine and shape the country's policies and programs? Bottom Line is the show to watch.
Well, join Asmi Uba as it brings to the table movers and shakers of society and policymakers whose decisions have direct impact on your lives.
Bottom Line comes up every Thursday at 7 p.m. on SLBC TV, channel 31 with Asmi Uba.
Bottom Line on SLBC TV. The program you can't afford to miss on SLBC TV channel 31. Join me now.
The show that touches every aspect of society as we leave no stone unturned.
It's Bottom Line, only on SLBC TV. Do you know the TV show that brings to you the decision makers who determine and shape the country's policies and programs? Bottom Line is the show to watch.
Well, join Asmi Uba as it brings to the table movers and shakers of society and policymakers whose decisions have direct impact on your lives.
Bottom Line comes up every Thursday at.
Hello and welcome to the program Bottom Line from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation. I am Asmi Uba. On Bottom Line today, the SLBC and APC argue over the recent speeches by President Julius Malema during the opening of party offices. Whereas the APC condemns the statement, the SLBC says it is part of acceptable standards. Stay with us for the next 1 hour as we shall look at the pros and cons of the President's speech and also get someone from the PPRC who serves as a umpire. The program is Bottom Line.
7 p.m. on SLBC TV, channel 31 with Asmi Uba.
Bottom Line on SLBC TV. The program you can't afford to miss on SLBC TV, Channel 31. Join me now.
The show that touches every aspect of society as we leave no stone unturned.
It's Bottom Line, only on SLBC TV.
You can join us on our Facebook page SLBC TV, or you can listen to the program on SLBC Radio on 90.9 FM in Freetown and our regional stations in Kenema, Makeni, Mangoka. Let's start the program now. For the past 1 month, the president has been visiting the provinces to open his political party offices in Bonth and recently in Kong. During those moments, like any politician, the president spoke in riddles and left his speeches to be interpreted by citizens. It is not new for politicians, especially presidents, to speak in parables or make statements that will leave their audiences in suspense. Just as the president does, his speeches have been given elastic meanings, some stretching them beyond what he means, while others still struggle to put it into the context and perspective that the speaker had in mind. Well, not just the president, even the chairman of the SNPP has been accused of making statements that the opposition says we are inciting. Well, the first to jump in the matter was the main opposition, the All People's Congress, which called for the president to apologize for the statements, and others also asked the BPRC to fine the SLPP. Well, the BPRC was swift to state that the president's speeches did not meet the threshold of incitement or creating division. But to further the discussion, I have in the studio the umpire, the director of trainings and external outreach at the Political Parties Regulation Commission, BPRC, Lucien Momo, Honorable Muni Ulansana, a member of the SLP media team, and Alfred Mikhail Goma, also a member of the APC media team. Welcome to the program, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Let me start with you. What was in the mind of the president when he was making some of these critical, controversial statements that have come under various interpretations?
Generally, one thing we need to know is the president is the fountain of honor, commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and having followed all those accurate, one could realize that whatever the president says, he needs peace for his country. The record of him has been traced far back to somebody who is democratic, who is peaceful. So whatever he's making as a statement is just geared towards re-energizing his party base and ensuring that it consolidates the support line of his party, especially in a situation where he knows at the end of his term he will be going, but he wants to see how his party will retain the mantle of leadership when it comes to succession.
Okay. But one of his statements, for example, when he opened the office in Bonth, he spoke in one of our local languages in Nigeria. He said if you join the APC in the morning, death will come to something like that. People say it was a parable in Mende. It has been given different interpretations. What was it the president meant?
Yeah, it's a riddle for those of us who can speak Mende, just like my brother Mikhail. He made about going downwards. We've got singers who has coined short language to say, if you look low upon the palm tree, for instance, what will happen? You will die in the morning hours. Morning hours in Mende is just a riddle to show because there's this adage that says Ginepi. Ginepi in Mende simply means the time you'll be enjoying your sleep. And the Gewoi in that line tells you in the morning. And the morning hours by Mende, we believe it as an hour that you enjoy your sleep. And because you enjoy your sleep at that time, they believe that the party that gives you the shade. Because when you look at the palm tree, it has a series of interpretations. Because the palm tree is that tree that provides shades for us. It gives us palm oil, it gives us palm kernel, it gives us broom to clean our house. All the factors associated with palm tree. So when we go to transmit our message, we say, okay, if you get all these values from the palm tree and yet you don't want to show value for this palm tree, it's like you'll be dying in the morning.
Okay, but I mean, we also need to look at the understanding of these things. We are living in a society where people different opinions and different, we are a political society.
Yeah.
And as people say, the message you send, once it comes out of your mouth, you don't have control of how it is going to be interpreted.
Indeed, those of us who study linguistics could tell that you have the articulative and you have the auditory. And one thing that is clear in this line is the fact that interpretation will be given to every utterance, but the reality is look at the message and the messenger. Who is the messenger here? The messenger in this particular context happens to be the president. And when you look at the messenger, one thing you know is he's having a role to play where one of those roles is maintaining peace and harmony for the well-being of his citizens. So you find it very difficult in a sort of situation where you expect the president to utter a statement where that statement will result to something breaking the peace that is building upon. So whoever is interpreting it is just like going from what we do in literature when we say denotative and connotative meaning. And denotatively, the ordinary meaning, like I have uttered in this video, is the fact that in Mendy, when we say you die in the morning, it's just a slang to say you die at a time when you're enjoying your sleep. Okay. It doesn't mean any other interpretation.
Okay, let me bring in Mikhail Koroma. Mikhail, what was the speak Mendy? You were born in the east of the country, from northern parents, in Canada to be precise, and you understood exactly what the president said. Are you one of those who understood what the president said?
Yes, I did understand clearly. And I think I am also in the position to interpret it properly.
Based on your own lessons?
Not based on the, well, you say connotative, you talk about the literal meaning or the figurative meaning of what the president was referring to. For me, with all due respect to the presidency, that statement was not appropriate. You know, it is not about you and I. Maybe our understanding may be different, but the ordinary man, the Gen Z generation, the way they could take it and interpret it and utilize it during election period. We've gone through a lot in bond districts as a party. I mean, the history of 2023 must not be repeated in Bond and Pujong. Our members were attacked, we were chased, we were pelted stones.
But it was never asked for people to be chased.
No, but then
that
particular statement, I mean, can warrant such situations that if people are forced in seeing the APC coming to power in 2028 and they are ready to demonstrate that particular fact during the electoral period, people will now say the president has once stated that anybody that voted the APC in 2028 should die in the morning, no matter where APC were or APC back the whole world. I mean, it is not appropriate for the president to have said so, because of the fact that some people take advantage of that.
So, you, as someone who speaks Mende, in which context do people normally use such a parody?
You also may want to know the statement that preceded that one. Before the president could make that statement, there was Baltimore, the chairman of the party, that said no more APC. In fact, he went to the stage singing, no more APC, no more APC, APC should, you know, that the president has appointed his lawyer boy, he's now the chairman of the SNPP. And as long as he's the chairman, APC should not see daylight. He started singing.
But is that not what some politicians normally say?
No, but no, that should not be the case. We've seen circumstances in which we have been reprimanded very seriously for making statements of such. We've seen circumstances in which, the Secretary General of the APC was not only fined by the PBRC, but was also incarcerated. He was remanded. He's running, court as we speak. He's yet to be acquitted and discharged. We've seen those circumstances. And so I think as the first gentleman, that statement was actually not appropriate by every standard. And the debate is on. We've seen civil society like the Law Society. They came out plainly and condemned that particular statement. We did not see any action from the PBRC, although there has been a memorandum of understanding urging us politicians to turn down. We've seen we are signatories to that.
Like I said in my intro, it is not uncommon. I remember when the APC had, I think it was in Makeni or so, when the former president Ernest Bai Koroma assembled the former aspirants of 2080 and said to them, if any one of them were to disrupt the APC for 2023, he was going to wage jihad. So, is it not the same in the same context?
No, the statement of Ernest
didn't expect everyone to go and use guns and machetes.
The statement of Ernest Koroma is not under review in this discussion.
No, I want to say
we are reviewing the statement of President Bio, and in fact, that was 2020, the elections leading to 2018. That was in 2017. That statement was made in 2017, I think we are now in 2026.
So was President Bio not drawing, maybe borrowing a leaf from President Bio?
No, those are two different statements.
So say you are going to wage jihad? Jihad is a very strong word.
I mean, like I said, we are not reviewing the statement of former President Kourouma, but rather the statement made by President Bio and recent statements that have been made by other SNPP leaders. That is what we are reviewing. That is what we are reviewing. And I think President Kourouma, again, asked me, like I said, quite recently there has been a memorandum of understanding. I mean, the PPRC is here. They are responsible to regulate the conduct of political parties. All political parties we are called. They were asked to append their signature on a certain memorandum of understanding to tone down. And then after that particular MOU, but before the MOU, what warranted the MOU, there was a point when the chairman of the SNPP did say they are going to stop the APC from winning. They have the commander-in-chief, they have the police, the military, they have their groups. He mentioned the soldier team and other groups. I mean, that statement also came under serious scrutiny, and it warranted reactions from some of us. Yeah, that they cannot stop the APC from winning. I reacted. Other people did react to that statement. At the end of the day, the situation was actually not favorable for the politics of the country. We were called to table by the PPRC, and then we were reprimanded very seriously. And a stern warning was handed down to political parties to tone down. So after that memorandum of understanding, we are not expecting such statements to be coming again from the main the party in governance. Aside the president and Batilo in bonds, the deputy minister of information, Bao, also went to Epic Radio and did say, I want the APC die. He was never reprimanded. So those statements are still coming. And we have toned down, as opposition, we have toned down. So the law also must, be applicable to all.
Okay.
The principles of the rule of law are very clear. The law must be applicable to all. You cannot say because this is the APC, the law must be different.
Is that what you are sensing?
That is what is happening. Because if you can be reprimanded and fined for certain statements, and when the SNPP leaders made those statements, they are let free, to go without any fines, without any statement from the PPRC, it begs the question, are we actually following the principles?
Okay, let me bring in Lucien Momo from the PPRC. A very strong accusation has been made here from Minkalu. It's like the APC is accusing the PPRC of cherry picking when to use the hammer. When they say something that you deem, in your own estimation, PPRC's estimation that it is insightful, a fine is levied. But on the other side, when a ruling party man makes certain statements, they go free according to the APC.
Well, I think to a very large extent he's not correct with what he said, because if we are cherry picking, we would not have fined the Sierra Leone People's Party for statements made by some of their officials, including the chairman. I can recall in that meeting that we held with the APC and the SLPP on the 11th of November last year, we played snippets of those statements being made by members of the APC and that of the SLPP. The question the SLPP chairman asked was, why did we play its own statement that he made at the party office? Why not play other statements made by members of parliament of the APC? What we said was that these are the most recent ones, that we had to warn them, and then followed by fines later on when some other members of the APC and the SLPP misconducted themselves. That is why you see now in the media, they are conducting themselves very, very well.
But the recent statement is the one made by the president.
I'm just laying the premise that we are not cherry picking.
Okay.
Minkalu knows that the statement of the president does not meet the threshold.
So what is the threshold? What is the threshold?
Let me land. And he knows what I'm saying. And the APC party knows what I'm saying. That it does not meet the threshold. We have a full complement of the commission. And we have people who can interpret Minde. I cannot interpret Minde. There are people who gave different interpretations, of the statement made by the president. Even when we were doing a matter within the APC, we also have someone in the APC who brought in an opinion. about those issues, and you have to strictly look at those opinions, and look at the status of the president, So if the APC knew or knows that the PPRC is cherry picking, they have a lot of remedies to check the PPRC, but they've never checked.
So did you assemble, for example, language experts?
Yes.
Who can give you the best of analysis, the best of opinion on what the president meant?
The chairman of the PPRC speaks Nede very well. He's a linguist and he's a lawyer. And other commissioners within the PPRC were there.
Did you seek outsiders to help you?
Yes,
just so that whatever decision you take.
When we deal with those issues, I never knew about the statement. I went somewhere when someone said, we see what's happening on social media. I thought it was an APC issue. It was an APC pressing. And then I said, I answered him, and then he said, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about A, B, C, D, and E. And I said, okay, send this statement by the president. Let me also send this statement to my chairman and the leadership of the PPRC to analyze the statement. And immediately they summoned a commission meeting to look at it, get experts who interpreted it. And according to the experts who interpreted it, it does not meet the threshold to find the SLPP.
If it had met, would the PPRC have the courage to find the president?
That would be a question for another day.
No, I mean, if it had met the threshold, would you have had the courage?
The PPRC, let me say, the PPRC has the powers of the High Court. And when we do investigation, if it does not meet the threshold, we cannot take action for those statements.
Okay. Minkailu, before I come to Honorable Mulukuruma, does that answer your question now? I mean, language experts we have brought, they gave their opinion, and according to them, what the president said did not meet the threshold for what you are asking.
Yes, first of all, let me underscore that as a party, we have a very good working relationship with the commission. I must say, we have cooperated with them in countless occasions, and they are also providing the leadership required, of them to guard political parties, including the APC. So we have no issues. This is a privileged conversation, and I am speaking the fact. No, that did not answer my question, because of the fact that those fines were levied after the MOU. Prior to the MOU, there were no fines, but the stand money was handed down to political parties. So those statements were made after the MOU.
So that's your concern?
Well, yes, after the MOU. For example, the statement made by lawyer Lance Anadumbuya at the Atuga Mini Stadium, in fact, he was singing Tiffy Tiffy, the 2023 elections. It was fine. He was reprimanded, fined, incarcerated, denied bail, and he's on in court. Yeah.
But it was not PPRC who charged him to court.
No, but yes, of course, yeah, PPRC, their responsibility is to fine.
Yeah.
When you go overboard, the fine. But that is double jeopardy. Yeah. Lansana was not only fined, he was incarcerated, he was investigated by CID. He was charged to court, and he's on in court as I speak. Zainab was also fined for making statement, and she has been sentenced for 4 years or so, 2 or 4 years. So those are very harsh punishments handed down to APC people. And so those statements that came after the MOU, he said even the PPRC, the SLPP, they have also fined the SLPP. Yes, a member of the SLPP was fined. I guess it was the person is spokesman at the office of the First Lady for making a statement that went against the MOU. It was fine. But then why is it that Matido was not fined? After a strong warning has been given to political parties, he was not fined. Bao, the Deputy Minister of Information, was not fined. I think.
Are you sure their statements met the threshold that people
to their interpretation, the commission, they are responsible to levy those fines. If they say they did not meet the threshold, it is for the public to judge. But I do not toe that line to say they did not meet the threshold. I know it is difficult for you to call the president to book because there is diplomatic immunity. You need to understand that clearly. And it started, my brother, Honorable Muniru, started by saying the president is the fountain of honor, is the commander-in-chief. I agree. is the first gentleman, and that is most of the reason why some of those statements must not be coming from the president, because he has diplomatic immunity. It is very difficult for PPRC to now say we are levying a fine against the first gentleman. That is very difficult. So they can bring.
So if it's difficult, if it's difficult, why are you asking PPRC to take action?
Well, I am saying they should be taking action. Okay, some of the times you may not want to fine, but you will, author a very strong press release reminding,
against the
respectfully, respectfully reminding the president of the law and the MOU. And he's leader of his party. We need to know that. He's not only president of the Republic of Sierra Leone, he's leader of the SLPP.
Okay.
There has to be a stern warning reminding the president and all other political leaders to continue to tone down, because the tensions may seem very high. We may not want to go into 2028 elections with those tensions. That is why PPRC is up their game. They are doing their job, and they are at the neck of political parties to do what is right. So they should not be afraid to utter press statements reminding us of the law. You cannot find the president, you cannot sue the president. He's the first gentleman. We understand that clearly.
Okay, how often do politicians use local languages to pass their message?
Well, one thing you need to know is every field has a register. And if you're in the north, you want to communicate to them, I do believe the best register to use is the local language of those people. And equally so, if you're in the southeast, you have to use the language that will resonate down with them.
But we have a common language that everyone speaks in Sierra Leone.
Yes, but it will interest you to know that when you go down those areas, not everybody understands this very Creole that you and I speak in town here. So that is why when you go to them, it's like, for instance, I want to communicate to my boys in Kanike, where I represent. What I'll be doing is the register that they are used to is what I will use. Because at the end of the day, if I'm in a podium like this, I know which register I will use. And when I get to the street, I know the street register. That is why those who studied English will say lexis and structure. And it tells you every field has its own language. And in politics, that is what you have to know. So that when you go, you know which message will I alter and what will I use to resonate with my people. What will make them compare to what I'm saying.
If some of those statements have the tendency to create tension, do you also use them?
No, you won't use statements that have tendency. Like we've rightly said or established here, it's all based on the interpretation we give to certain utterances. Because, for instance, even the word sorry, that you and I clearly understand to be an appealing message, could also be insulting depending on how somebody interprets it or the tone that you use in alternate. Because that is the underline. You look at the word ordinarily, sorry means an appealing word that you want to see how you could turn to a new page. But depending on the utterance, sorry, and the vigor or tone that you use to pronounce it, then the interpretation becomes different.
Sometimes it is also said that politicians want to keep their base energized. So sometimes they play to the gallery. Once they see this hall full of their supporters, they see the camera, they play to the gallery, they say things, and later in their quiet moment, they themselves say, "Oh, I wish I had not made such a statement."
Well, that is why you have to be mindful as a public speaker, because as a public speaker, what entails you is what type of a message do I need to alter, and when I alter a word, is this word normal? Because without you knowing these things, it's like Minkalu is saying, though by register now what we are looking at is the issue at hand. But we've seen in this country, for instance, right in the APC party office, where somebody is saying the Mendes are fools. Depending on somebody interpret that, you know what to say. So it all boils around, as leaders representing the people, we need to know what to say and when to say them.
Okay.
Once we establish that, we have a line of communication.
Listen, does the PPRC normally counsel politicians, if I could put it that way, to know what to say when they are in full gear, in the presence of their supporters, in their strongholds, in their bases and what have you? Because that's the time they want to excite the crowd, that's the time they want cheering and what have you, and they play to the gallery.
Well, of course, we spent a lot, through our development partners, to organize trainings, for the leadership of political parties and also their supporters. And then I will tell you that after the meeting we held on the 11th of November last year, I think steps were taken by both the APC and the SLPP, to conscientize, their membership as to how they conduct themselves whilst, carrying on their political activities. But let me make this correction. The issue of the chairman of the SLPP was dealt with in that meeting of the 11th of November.
No, but the statement he made after November 11th.
I'm coming. My brother made a statement that when the chairman of the SLPP spoke about Sonia team and all of those were the issues that we dealt with on the 11th. And then the chairman said what the meaning that he gave to it was not the meaning that he was saying, because as he was saying, people were misconstruing what he was saying, because they made the mention of Sonia team. And then going forward, the issue of...
But you and I know what Soja team is.
So, well, they have in their party, they have Soja team. In the APC also, they now have Soja team. That was part of the petition. That was some of the groups that were petitioned that were named in Wayamba district.
I don't think we have Soja.
So that's new for you. Then go look at our report.
I have read the report.
Yes,
but
that was an issue that came up. So what I'm saying here is that the statement also made by Jimmy Batilo Songa, no more APC. What's the meaning of that? Did they say we are going to close down or we are going to shut down the APC party office? Or did they say they are going to use the PPIs to deregister the APC? The answer is no. So that does not meet the threshold. The statement also made by the deputy minister. Did he say the same as I'm saying? It says if he has the power, APC will not come to power.
That's subjunctive, right?
Did he explain how he's going to do it? The answer is no. That does not. There are several statements being made by both parties that do not meet the threshold. In the past 2 months, what we do in our office is we monitor the media space on a daily basis. Okay. We analyze statements made by the SLPP will call us, the APC will call us, other political parties will call us, the big one and they misconduct themselves. We'll go and look. People out of the APC and SLPP on a daily basis or on a weekly basis send us statements made by these 2 political parties. We have to analyze those statements. Okay. Because for us, we want to strengthen them. We don't want to suppress them. That is why we're looking, that's the agreement we made between us and them. That whenever these happen, we have to ensure that we investigate them, we analyze them to see that they meet the threshold. Okay. That is why we had the 11th of November meeting. We had a meeting before the 11th of November in around February 2023, where we levied a fine on the APC. After warning, we levied a fine on the APC, and then at the SLPP, and in that meeting, both parties.
And this issue of levying fines,
those parties, both of them, they asked PPRC, okay, when some of these issues come up, please don't fine. Yeah, let's engage. That's why we engage.
Some of your critics, PPRC's critics, the PPRC was not established to serve as an income-generating institution. Your business is to regulate and allow political parties to flourish. But fining, it's as if you are becoming a money-making institution.
I don't think
a revenue-generating institution.
I don't think we've overfined. If I can recall, we'll find about 3 or 4 times. The first fine to the APC, we went to court. They were first-time offenders, and the fine was dropped. That was before the 2023 elections. The fines that comes in does not go into the coffers of the PPRC. It goes into the coffers.
Like I said, you are not a revenue-generating institution.
The PPRC did not make the law. The political parties themselves made the law. What you are doing is protecting the law.
Interpreting it.
Interpreting and protecting the law.
Thank you very much, Lucien Momo. The program is Bottom Line, coming to you live from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation with me, Asmiba. We are going for a few seconds break. After the break, we are back.
Do you know the TV show that brings to you the decision makers who determine and shape the country's policies and programs? Bottom line is the show to watch.
Well, join Asmi Uba as it brings to the table movers and shakers of society and policymakers whose decisions have direct impact on your lives.
Bottom line comes up every Thursday at 7 p.m. on SLBC TV, Channel 31 with Asmi Uba.
Bottom line on SLBC TV, a program you can't afford to miss on SLBC TV, Channel 31. Join me now.
The show that touches every aspect of society as we leave no stone unturned.
It's Bottom Line, only on SLBC TV. Do you know the TV show that brings to you the decision makers who determine and shape the country's policies and programs? Bottom line is the show to watch.
Well, we are back with the program Bottom Line from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation with me. Asmi Uba from our Facebook page. One says, "Good talk, my brother, the Honorable Keep It Up for Moses Kayonga in Old City." This other one says, Payamba, you are correct, keep it up. Let me come to you again, straight to you, Minkailu Kuruma. When politicians see a room full of their supporters, you guys normally want to excite your crowd, you want to energize your base, and that's the moment you make statement that you, in your quiet moments, if that statement is repeated, is played, you will wonder whether you made that statement or not.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I agree, but that should not be the case. Yeah? I want to respond to a wide allegation made by my brother, Honorable Neil, that at the APC office someone did say the Mendes are fools. The Mendes are not fools because I was born and raised in a land that is full of Mendes. I went to school with most of my colleagues who became brothers that are Mendes. They are not fools, it's a very intelligent guy. And so I don't think that statement was made at the APC office.
Yeah, was it made?
Again, I don't know. I have not listened to that statement.
Who made that statement?
Because you know, these are some of the statements.
The statement right at the APC pavilion, like.
Okay.
Well, that is not to my knowledge. Because as far as I am concerned, I mean, those rhetorics are things we must not encourage in this country. It is not good. You know, I have also sat at hot seats. A program at AYD where Moses Mambu did state that APC not agree for sending people to go school, and not agree for sending people to go school. And I told him, Moses Mambu, I am seated here with you, you know, beautifully educated, with a lot of academic papers. You cannot say APC not sending people to go school. I cannot say that to the SNPP. So these are statements we should not be making. Now, coming to your question, when we are in a political room full of our supporters, we are sometimes excited to make statements that may be viewed as not guided. No, a mature politician should not be moved by the crowd. And in fact, if you want to talk to your people, there are many things you should say. You know, without making statements that could be regarded as inciting. We have a lot of things to say. You have to raise your
You yourself had been found wanting of making one.
I was never found wanting. I reacted. I was never found wanting. I reacted to a statement. Now let me state this. I was at Liberty Online TV. Mabel and Khadija were the moderators. I was there with Moses Mambu. He made statement that they are going to stop the APC from winning.
And you
I reacted to that particular.
to make the concept of governing.
No, as I said, there is no way they will stop the APC from winning the next election. And that if they attempt to rig in the next election, there is a condition. If they attempt to rig in the next election, we shall make the country ungovernable. And then PPRC did give a start warning regarding those statements. And then since then, such statements have not been repeated.
Okay.
No, we are very much guided now going forward. So most of the time we are provoked to violent reaction. Yeah, so we react on statements that we are not the initiators of those statements, we don't initiate them. So yes, you know, sometimes I agree with you, politicians are moved by the crowd, and so because they are moved by the crowd, they make statements sometimes that are not guided, and later they regret it.
But sometimes you guys also argue that some of those statements you make are not intentional. For example, you cited, I mean, the APC defended Lansana Doumbouya, and even the lady who is now in jail,
Zainab.
Zainab. I mean, the APC said those statements had no way, I mean, their intentions were not to create any incitement.
No, Lansana's statement, I think, did not meet the threshold for him to be remanded, to be denied bail, and to still run in court. That is just a political decision that was taken. Yeah, that statement did not meet the threshold. But it was reviewing the elections, even in the best of democracies. Donald Trump now in America so and say then he not lost election. And he still challenged the results. Even as president, he went to the Capitol, he misbehaved. Sorry to say, but he did. You see, and so if Lansana did say the elections were rigged, I think that did not meet the threshold for him to be remanded. And he said the Tifu election. I think the president became offended for the song, the Tifi Jan Koliko, and Lansana is somebody that is very, I mean, sometimes he makes joke a lot. Yeah, I don't think he was too very serious for him to be remanded, and he's still on in court for that. I only wish he can be acquitted and discharged, but that is what's under the bridge now. Those statements can never be made. Okay. We are now fully guided by the PPRC, and then we have a spaghetti relationship with the Commission. And that is why after that MOU and that warning, when you follow most of the debates, I mean, we have toned down, we are now very civilized, we engage on issues, we talk on issues, we don't attack personalities anymore.
Okay, I mean, is there a way that our politicians can move from Timmy and Mende when they want to address their supporters?
It will be very difficult because, like I stated in my initial submission, the fact remains, we as politicians do follow the English principle of letters and structure. And when we want to communicate, it's like you talking to youths, like my brother said, Gen Zs. You need to know the register that they are familiar with.
But some of the register that Gen Zs might use, I mean, they are unpalatable, you can't use them.
That is where the maturity comes in. You as a mature politician or as somebody who is supposed to be a pace setter, you need to decipher which one will be altered that will not offend or go against any law. Because in law, those who are punit of the law, we are able to call credibility and relevance. Because an evidence will be relevant, but that evidence can't be admissible. So it's about the court now deciding on these two concepts, knowing which evidence is relevant and which one can be admissible. Because at the end of the day, when you come outside, the interpretation by the locals will be different. For instance, we are looking at Zainab and Doumbouya's issues. When you look at Zainab issues under the legal lens, you will notice the conditionalities that warranted are not to be granted bail. Because when you look at bail,
was she a flight risk?
That is where the conditionality comes in, because she was invited, she never showed up. We saw her granting interviews to an extent of even saying if APC dare pay the fine, she will take them to court. All those statements were altered. At the end of the day, invitation was sent to her, she never showed up, and warrant was given. And the moment a warrant is issued, that is now a different conditionality altogether when it comes to the court. Despite the provision laid in 76 and 77 of the Criminal Procedure Act, that is the line. So when you look at all those conditionalities, you begin to ask, why has the court not done this? So when it comes to the register, like you rightly said, it will be difficult because when a politician goes to the north, you want to use the register that is common.
Let me bring in the PPS. Is there a way our politicians can address their supporters in the dominated language? For example, because when you begin to go into Mende or Temne, everyone begins to interpret things in a different way.
What I would say is that if a politician wants to address his supporters or their supporters in the region, I think if the politician is unable to really speak the real language that is understandable by those people, I think we must use the services of an interpreter who can interpret the You know, because there are some areas in Sierra that people do not speak or speak English. They only know their language. I can recall when we were doing a petition and a petition for the Honourable Congress in Ghana. There was this petitioner who says he cannot express himself very well in Creole. So we had to get an interpreter internally. Mind you, the current chairman of the PBS, he speaks about 5 to 6 languages in Sierra Leone. So most of the politicians are surprised, you know, at some point when he attempts to speak these languages. So in this instance, I think they must employ the services of people who can speak a real language. I know people who can speak Lingala and Liba, but when they are approached by those who can speak real Liba and Timni, they get confused. So what we were saying, or what we will be advising politicians is that
or is it a tactic by politicians when, for them to speak things that not everyone understands, but that audience, that's the moment they use, they plan certain words that you and I won't understand, but the message they want has been sent?
Well, I cannot say because it has not been proven. So our advice that we're giving to politicians is that speaking the language that the people can understand through an interpreter. If you cannot, what I think again we'll have to do as a commission is to ensure that politicians refrain from speaking or saying things that have different interpretations. We are always in the middle, you know. We will always be in the middle. So our advice is that don't speak in riddles.
Is that, how possible is that?
There are some people who cannot understand. Now, the issue we're discussing, the Bible has its own interpretation, and the Honorable has its own interpretation. Other people have their own interpretation of the statement made by the president. You know, so what I'm saying is that if I was a politician going there, you know, going to Kano, going to Kenya, going to McKinney, I would find an indigene to interpret what I'm saying.
But sometimes also, I think politicians also want to put their people in suspense. So they speak openly and you have your own understanding.
Well, again, you know, I think why politicians, what Moni is saying is that they want to relate to the people. That is why they tend to speak in the language that the people understand. But in relating to the people, my own advice, you know, as a person, is that I speak through an interpreter. But again, there are some dangers in some interpretation. When we went to Guinea during the AFRC, some of us were into some learning institutions in Guinea. The person that was interpreting French for us was interpreting something else. So some of us who knew some French, you know, said, no, we don't think he's interpreting what you're saying. What you're saying is not what he's saying.
Okay.
So some of us who knew what you're saying, we end up being interpreting in what we understand.
Is there a way you the politicians deviate from using Timni and Mende when you
No, there's no way. That is in fact not possible. You know, sometimes you have to relate to the people.
And in the process of relating, you make statement that
no, you should not take advantage of that particular relationship with the people to now make statements that can be viewed to be inciting. Like he said, I agree with him, you know, correctly. He did say politicians should refrain from giving out messages that may be interpreted differently. I agree with him. That even when we speak, you know, in the local languages, the languages that the people understand, we must also be very careful not to incite the people in speaking in those languages. I also agree in terms of interpretation. Some people may exaggerate when they want to interpret. You may say something, you know, with a different meaning, and now when they want to interpret, they can give it their own meaning.
But politicians go for applause.
Don't forget the applauses. You know, politicians, I mean, it does not mean because you're a politician you have to be very insincere. Loyalty is to a party, but I mean, patriotism is to country. You have to be patriotic, and patriotism comes first before loyalty to party. And so if you make a statement that is inciting, influencing your people to violent reaction against their opponent, is also very bad. We need to understand that very clearly. but it is not bad for us to use our language. For example, when I go to Kenema to campaign for the APC, I will speak in Mende. When I go to Kayam, Pujon, Moyamba, and some other places, I speak in Mende fluently. Sometimes I introduce the entourage in Mende, I speak in Mende, but then when the leader wants to speak, that is always done in Creole. But then some people will be there to interpret for those that cannot understand Creole. When I go to Tongolili, to Cambia, to Potoko, and some other places in the north, I speak in Temne fluently so that the people can understand. But for the leader, most times the leader, they speak in Creole all through, because you have journalists in those places, you have other people. Sometimes you have diplomatic missions attending some of those political rallies. So you may want to make statement and somebody intervene so that everybody can understand exactly the message you are passing down to your supporters. But to say we are going to completely deviate from using those languages, it is not possible.
I mean, you've been in politics for a long time now, and you've worked with top politicians in your party. Do the politicians the top one, are they normally prepped before they face their crowds, their audiences?
Yeah, not in all cases. In most cases, they go and make spontaneous speeches. In most cases, I have to be honest. Yeah? In most cases, they go, except if it is a major political statement, let's say a manifesto, you want to go to deliver your manifesto, or it's a presidential debate, a very serious debate, you are aware. Yeah, and you also have people around you to guide you. But for most of those engagements, it's just spontaneous statements. Some of those statements are not even written. Because if you write a statement, somebody will be there to review that statement. To say, Mr. Leader, I want you to remove this word and replace it with this, because this can be interpreted differently. And I think it is also very much in place for politicians, especially leaders of political parties, to inculcate the idea of penning down their statements. You do not need to hold a paper when addressing the crowd. But if you pen down a statement, read it once or twice, that statement will now be part of you before you appear before the audience to address them. That's what I belong.
Honorable Nico, I'll ask you the same question. I keep calling
No, yeah, we need to go around. So I think the majority, we want to go with you.
So I'm Honorable Nico Lansa. This issue of politicians, when they want to go and address, just speak spontaneously sometimes. In that process, they say things that they shouldn't have said. If only they had written their speeches, I'm sure they wouldn't have said certain things.
It will be difficult to write down your speech in politics, like my brother slightly said, especially in an informal setting.
Okay.
Because normally what you intend saying and what you mean practically are two different things. Because the moment you are before the people, let's assume, for instance, questions or issues emerge. You want to address those issues as a politician because, like I said, you want to resonate with what exactly people want to hear you. We went to Bonds, for instance. We went to Pujol. In Pujol, we just commissioned a bridge and other developments. We want to explain to the people that because we've done X, Y, Z for you, if you decide not to vote for SLPP, this is what it will be like if SLPP
No, this is what should be following.
if SLPP goes to opposition. So at the end of the day, you want that exact register to drill you down to that person who is standing at the right corner. And you don't need an interpreter like Mr. Lucien said. Somebody interpreting will either add or subtract, as the language principle normally says. You want it direct from articulating to the audience.
But sometimes also politicians, they don't want, not everyone they want to understand what they say. For example, now if I go to a place and they know I don't speak Mende, many of us, they say, okay, I mean, quote unquote in Kyoto, whether you understand anyone which will talk, so don't talk about Timmy and Mende. For lost you, no.
Yeah, but once you do that, you'll be losing ground because as a politician, your aim is to communicate because your message is what the people want to hear. You might not be able to do all they need at a time, but out of what you're telling them, they know you've said something that is truthful, they know you've said something that is honest, and by your words, by your diction, they know exactly that, oh, we've seen a brother, we've seen somebody that is part of us, like Minkai said, he's leading the delegation to Kenema. As a Mende man, he wants to portray to the people of Kenema that APC as well have Mendes. So what do you think he's going to do? Yes, he was born there, though it's not a background, but he wants to give that line. If you listen to the wife of Juliet, when she was in Kenema during our last campaign, what did she do? She altered the message in Mendy. She was a fuller, she's a fuller woman, but she wants to tell the Kenema people that I was born and raised here. What do you think she do? She looks for a diction that will make the people of Kenema not only see her as a fuller, but also that person who has been with them, knows how they reason, knows how they behave, and somebody who has been...
You said that's an interesting. I remember when President Obama visited Cairo University of Azhar University. I mean, his opening statement was "Assalamu alaikum" to the Muslim world, and he wanted the Egyptians and the rest of the Middle East population to think that yes, he's not a Muslim, but he understands something about what Assalamu alaikum means.
Yeah, yes, of course. For us as the PPRC, it's really relevant. This is politics. They are politicians, and they want. And if you look at the section 5, 1 of the Constitution of 1991 and 6 of 1991, they must have a national face. That is why it is good that when Cairo goes to the south and the east, it speaks Libya. When it goes to the north and the northeast, or the northwest, it speaks in Italian. So that is why politicians, they want to relate to the people. That is very good. That is why, as a PPRC, when we relate to these political parties, we always start with their slogans to let them know that you know their slogans. And when we get all of them, we know all of their 17 slogans often. Can recite it, So they feel that we relate to them. Whenever we go to an area of APC or SLPP, the language that they best understands, the chairman tried to communicate with them in that particular language until it reaches the level where they can no longer communicate. It drops down.
Language, the communication, language is powerful.
Very powerful.
So the issue of political communication is also something that politicians and political parties should know how to use. I think it also behoves the PPRC to, should I say, teach or show politicians when it comes to political communication.
Well, part of our strategic plan is to also build the capacity of political parties, and that also is part of what we are going to do with them until 2028 and even after and beyond 2028. And we are not going to limit it only to the national officers. We are going to take it down to the grassroots. We are going to take it even to the chiefs, because the chiefs are custodians of the laws in the provinces.
Mika, this issue of political communication is something that political parties should take seriously.
Yeah, it is.
What's that powerful? Once they go out, you can't.
I agree. That is a whole arena in itself, and I think especially politicians interfacing with the public must have to go through that particular training to understand the language they should use, what to say and what not to say. That will offend not only your opponent but even the nation, because some of the times your opponents will not be the only person to reprimand you. Some statements you can be reprimanded by the nation. Yes, including those that have no business with the politics of the day, but they are interested in the peace and security of the country. It is appropriate, and I think the body that should ensure that political party benefit from those trainings should be the PPRC, because they are responsible to regulate the conduct. They can suggest to political parties. But for those who are spokespersons for the parties and also political leaders, including members of parliament, because they also have their constituents, most often than not they engage them directly on issues that has got to do with lawmaking, consultation with them, and a lot more. And I think it is appropriate for us to invite us as politicians, as political parties, so that it can be part of the operations we do.
But normally, all these theories, once, for example, now once 2028 is here, the PPRC will have a difficult task. Politicians forget about all these rules. They make statements as and when they feel.
No, I don't think
it has happened 2018, 2023.
I think going forward, it's going to be a different ballgame altogether.
Okay. Well, because
now we need to know in the PPRC, the act that established the PPRC was reviewed in 2022. You know, it is now a regulation commission, different from what it used to be. They now have more powers, and I think they have also put in place a lot of mechanisms to regulate political parties, not to suppress them, but to regulate them properly so that they can operate within the confines of the laws of this country. And I think 2028 must not be an excuse for politicians to now, you know, start behaving in ways that could be regarded as...
Even the revised PPRC Act had come under lots of criticism. For example, one of your members, Dr. Sylvia Blyden, had made very strong condemnation on the PPRC Act. He said the PPRC was given undue powers. They, instead of allowing political parties to flourish, they are suppressing political parties, especially when issues of fines keep coming.
No, well, maybe I have a tremendous respect for Dr. Blyden, but I may not share that particular school of thought. Yeah? For me, it is country first. I have benefited from the commission. At some point, I worked for the commission. And I understand clearly that the review was appropriate because, you know, the commission was constrained. Even when political parties go overboard, I mean, they can only advise. You know, in some cases, they can only intervene when approached. If they are not approached, they cannot intervene. So reviewing that particular act and giving them powers to now be in the position to regulate the conduct of political parties.
So you support the fines?
Yes, sometimes it is necessary. Okay. Because if there are no fines, people can go misguided, make statements that are offensive, and that will warrant violent reaction, and that will lead to something unspeakable for the country. So the fines are in place. Okay. They are necessary, but they must ensure that those fines are applied evenly, that they don't cherry pick, and that they don't have sacred cows. That if you are APC or SFPD, irrespective of your position, when you violate the law, the fine must be levied accordingly.
Okay.
And for the presidency, it is difficult for any institution to find the president. I must say that clearly. So that is also be expected much from the presidency, and that for some of those statements, they should not be coming from His Excellency.
Okay. I want to go about the issue of political communication for political parties as we round off.
Yes, political communication, simply like we're doing practically with the institution of PPRC. We've seen some sanity, and like Bakaba said, we need strong institutions, and once we have strong institutions, there is absolute sanity when it comes to the conduct of human behavior. Because at the end of the day, like the discussion has said, the president is a human, and he's liable to any other issue like any other human, but with strong institutions and laws, we do believe we have supremacy of the law, where nobody is above the law. Yes, that is why if whatever he says or said was interpreted to be something that warrants that fine, I do believe they will have fined him in line of him being the leader of the party rather than him being.
Do you think you guys would have done that?
They would have.
If the president's message had met the threshold,
the sovereign immunity has the office where it falls, and at that forum where he was on the political immunity.
No, but he was president.
Yes, he was president everywhere. But what we're saying, we're looking at the supremacy of the law, and because it is the law that is supreme. And as a president, we, like I said, it's a fountain of
He was never ruled off of his power as president.
Yes, it's a fountain of honor.
So whenever he finds himself as president,
yes, but
that's why I'm trying to say the president makes the news. Whenever he goes, his news.
And that is why when he's in that office, that immunity will cover him. But if he had uttered a statement that has clocked that threshold, I do believe out of office, PPRC will now stay.
Lucian, that will be my parting question to you. If the president's statement had met your threshold, would you have fined him?
Well, then that will be a discussion for another.
No, well, I would have said you would have fined him.
I agree with
Well,
you.
I will not make that a policy statement because I'm a staff. I'm not a policy maker of the PPRC.
Why if the law says so?
Well, so be it. The commission took a decision.
Right.
No, well, I will restate this position. I share the sentiment of Lucien. It is very constrained. The world over, it is very difficult for fines to be levied on the presidency. That is why he's the president, the fountain of our commander-in-chief. I mean, he's the guardian of the constitution.
Yes.
So we expected much from the presidency.
Okay.
I believe President Bill in his quiet moments, can now go over those statements and advise himself not to repeat them any longer.
Okay.
I believe so.
You see that way?
Yeah, absolutely. But the fact remains, the law is supreme and not man. And because it is the law that is supreme, there is always a room for the law to take effect. That's I believe.
Well, thank you very much. He is Honorable Muniu Lansana, I won't call him Madistan. He is a member of the SLB media team. Well, bottom line came to you because of capable hands of my colleagues behind the scenes. Well, special thanks to my team of camera and studio operators. I said thank you for watching and join us next week for another edition of the program Bottom Line. Don't forget this program is going to be repeated on Saturday. Till we join you again next week, guys. I'll see you back. See you back.
Do you know the TV show that brings to you the decision makers who determine and shape the country's policies and programs? Bottom Line is the show to watch.
Well, join Asmi Uba as it brings to the table movers and shakers of society and policymakers whose decisions have direct impact on your lives.
Bottom Line comes up every Thursday at 7 p.m. on SLBC TV, Channel 31.